Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our live town hall session focusing on the Google Journalism Emergency Relief Fund. My name is Nick Hopkins. I'm the Google News Lab lead for Australia and New Zealand, and I'll be your host for today. First of all, I want to say I hope everyone is safe and well and coping, of course, with social distancing as we deal with coronavirus. This is very unusual times and sometimes can be very difficult, so I hope everyone's okay. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we all meet. Where I'm sitting, that's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. So let's pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. As you can see, I'm working from home. And if you see or hear my children or dogs or family in the background, that is normal and it's life as we know it right now. So apologies if we have any interruptions. The format for the town hall today is that I'll be shortly handing over to my colleague Irene J. Liu in Singapore, who will walk us through some of the information about the Emergency Relief Fund, and then we'll open the floor to questions. Just to recap for anybody who is just catching up, the Global Journalism Emergency Relief Fund has been announced through the Google News Initiative to support small and medium-sized news organizations that are producing original news content for local communities in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a global fund. It applies, of course, to everyone around the world, but of course Australia and New Zealand. And the idea of it is to provide easily accessible financial assistance to newsrooms in need. So in this town hall, you will learn more about, there are my dogs, about the fund, the eligibility requirements, and the application process. And if you have any questions, there's a comment section. Please type them in. You can ask the question as we go. We'll get to them at the end, and we'll either answer them on the call or come back to you if we don't have an immediate answer. Just some quick housekeeping. If you have a question for our PR team, please direct that by email to press@google.com. There's a team of people who can come back to you if you have any questions on that. So with that, I'll hand over to Irene, and at the end of that, we'll take some questions. Irene, over to you.
Great, thanks, Nick. All right, let's go straight to the presentation. So, as Nick mentioned, we are here to talk about the Journalism Emergency Relief Fund, which is part of an initiative called the Google News Initiative, which was launched in 2018 as a way to support the news industry and work with journalism to ensure a better future. So, we are living in extraordinary times. So the question is, what exactly is Google doing and what is the Journalism Relief Fund? In order to support the production of original journalism for local communities in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Google News Initiative is creating a global fund that hopes to provide an easily accessible route to financial assistance at this critical time. We know that news is more important now than ever, and especially local news organizations are providing a absolutely critical role and service to their communities. So for that reason, we wanted to open up this global program. Specifically for the Asia Pacific region, there are many geographies that are eligible. One quick note, applications do close on the 30th of April at roughly 3 p.m. Singapore time, so 5 p.m. Australian AEST. These are the geographies that are eligible throughout the Asia Pacific region. If for some reason you are joining us from outside of the Asia Pacific region, you can go to our website to find the specific geographies in all other regions as well. So most importantly, who is this fund for? This fund is targeted for small and medium-sized news organizations. They must be producing original news content with a focus on local communities. News organizations must have a digital presence that's been in operation for at least 1 year. This means your own branded destination website. While you're welcome to, of course, have also various channels through other social media platforms and others, you must have your own digital presence as well. The news organizations must have between 2 and 100 full-time staff employee journalists. So this means not freelancers, but full-time employee journalists. Now, journalists we categorize as reporters, editors, photographers, videographers, anyone who's involved in the editorial production of news. And for those of you who are wondering, I have 102 full-time employee journalists. Am I not eligible? We very much encourage you to apply anyway, because we have the discretion to evaluate applications that exceed the 100 cap on a region by region and case by case basis. News organizations can include for-profit or nonprofit news organizations, traditional print media, digital natives, radio and or TV broadcasters. If you are producing radio or TV, you just need to, again, have your own digital presence online. Who is not eligible for this program? Government-owned entities and individuals are not eligible to apply. Websites and content producers that are not producing news. So for example, if your emphasis is on lifestyle, sports, or business-to-business news, you are not eligible. News providers without a digital presence are not eligible to apply, and new organizations that are younger than 1 year are also not eligible. So you must have been incorporated for at least 1 year in order to be eligible for this program. So what's the process? It's actually quite straightforward. You just go to goo.gle/jerfund and apply on an online form. It is quite a straightforward process, and we'll explain what you need to apply, but it really shouldn't take very long. And we really very, very much encourage you to apply as soon as possible, basically after this town hall is over, because applications will be handled on a rolling basis, which means that as applications come in, we will be evaluating applications and notifying successful applicants by email. So get ahead of the queue and make sure that you apply as soon as possible, because as the process continues and more applications come in, it may actually take longer because we'll have to go through a longer backlog. So what information is required for the application? It's a simple form. You need to provide basic company/organization information. You need to include when you were founded, the date you were founded, the location of your news organization, where are you physically located, what areas do you cover, the website URL of your publication. And we ask that you tell us about the work that you are carrying out to assist communities in crisis. Explain, given the COVID-19 situation, what are you doing to serve your community? And just to be clear about this, the coverage doesn't have to only be health coverage of COVID-19. We know that this pandemic is affecting the economy, it's affecting jobs, it's affecting businesses being open and closed, which is by its very nature, very much a local issue. So as you are informing your public about the ramifications of the situation we're in, please definitely include that in your application. The application is, as you can see, this is a screenshot of what it looks like. You put in all your information, and then you can save for later, or you can go ahead and just submit. There is a PDF available of all the questions. I really recommend that you download that PDF first, look at all the questions that you have to answer, and just to keep it easy and make sure that for whatever reason, if your computer shuts down or there's any other issue, that you don't lose your work, fill out all the questions in a doc and then copy and paste them in. That way you'll have them. And really, it really shouldn't take more than an hour to be able to fill this out. So really encourage you to do it as soon as possible. We do have this application in a number of languages in terms of the translations in order to assist applicants. However, we do ask that you submit your answers in English. So how does the funding work? Funds will be dispersed in a one-time installment as quickly as possible. The funding is going to be in US dollars. So when you are preparing, if you are successful, you will need to make sure that your bank account can receive money in US dollars. The range of funding goes from around the low thousands of US dollars for small hyper-local newsrooms to the low tens of thousands for larger newsrooms. And the funding does vary per region. So a few tips for our applicants. First of all, read the terms and conditions and the frequently asked questions very carefully. These are available on the website. Download the application form ahead to complete it more easily, to describe how you are serving your community during this crisis. This is a really important aspect as we are evaluating applications. A really important thing, coordinate within your newsroom and make sure you are only submitting one application. We will only review one application. And also do it now. The closing date is the 30th of April. However, we are evaluating the applications on a rolling basis. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you'll hear back from us. A few other things, no funding is available for non-news providers. Individuals, freelancers are not eligible for this program, and government organizations are also not eligible. If you have any questions, we'll take questions more broadly in this town hall, but if you have specific questions about your own application or your own organization, please feel free to email jerfund@google.com. We have a whole team that's operating around the clock that is happy to answer these questions. And apply today at goo.gle/jerfund. With that, let's take some questions.
All right, thank you, Irene. Just looking at the questions now, we have none in there. There is one question, why not just put a monthly $10 surcharge on broadband accounts and surcharge on mobile phone accounts? I don't think that's really a question for Google. It's not something that we do or have any influence over. So I think we might let that one through. Irene, while we wait for any other questions to come through, we have had some people ask that if you're a recipient of Google Innovation Challenge funding, can you still apply to receive some funding from the Emergency Relief Fund? What's our answer to that?
Absolutely. If you have received funding through the Innovation Challenge or other Google programs, you're still very much eligible to apply for this. So definitely, please go ahead.
Great. Another question that's come in is whether or not there is any limit to the amount of funding that a publisher can receive or apply for.
So as I mentioned in the presentation, the funding that will be given per news title ranges from this low thousands and this is US dollars, low thousands for small hyperlocal newsrooms to the low tens of thousands for larger local newsrooms. We do note that if you are a title as part of a larger news company, that the titles should absolutely feel free to apply, but we will be trying to make sure that in fairness that we are distributing the funding to as many news organizations and news companies as possible. So it will be subject to review in terms of if there are many applications coming from the same news organization.
Great. I might just wait and see if there are any last minute questions. No one has asked anything just yet. Irene, are there any other questions that you've encountered during this process?
So sure, one of the questions that we've had is, what is the definition of a journalist if they are not producing, if they're an editor but don't actually write, do they still count as editorial? And the answer is yes. Essentially, the staff that is producing the content, right? So everything from the photographers and the videographers to editors and journalists all must be counted in that count. And we know that obviously 100 is a very kind of hard line. We do have regional discretion to evaluate cases on a case-by-case basis. And so really encourage you that even if you do exceed the 100 newsroom personnel cap, that you do apply and leave it to us to evaluate the application.
Great, thank you. I would encourage people to stay tuned to the News Initiative website. There is constantly updates on information that we have that people can act upon. There are some other emergency relief initiatives that we've announced as well in relation to Google Ad Manager. So if that's something that might affect you, I would encourage you to have a look at that. But looking at the live comments, it doesn't look like we have anything more. So with that, thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you, Irene, and thank you again for joining us, and good luck. Hope everyone gets out there and starts applying.
Thanks.